Daily Tech News Show is made possible by you listening right now. Thanks to all of you, including Pele Glendale, Tim Deputy, Brandon Brooks, and Gwen Zilks. On this episode of DTNS, OpenAI plans to announce 12 new things in 12 days, why the FBI is now for encryption, and Scott Johnson makes sense of Sony's middle-of-the-road comments on AI in gaming. This is the Daily Tech News for Wednesday, December 4th, 2024. In Los Angeles, I'm Tom Merritt.
From Studio Animal House, I'm Sarah Lane.
In Salt Lake City, I'm Scott Johnson.
And I'm the show's producer, Roger Chang.
Oh my goodness, do we have some tech news for you today, folks. It's like a Thanksgiving feast of technology information.
I'm so tired of turkey, though, Tom.
There's no turkey in this show.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Yeah. Unless you consider that AI created game that Scott's going to talk about a bit of a turkey.
Different kind of turkey.
Different kind of turkey, though. Sure. The other white meat. All right, let's start with the quick hits.
Analyst Ming-Chi Kuo wrote on Medium that Apple's rumored Echo Show competing smart display that would be made by Apple, originally expected for sometime this year, has been delayed to 2025, perhaps until WWDC, which would presumably happen in June or even later in the year. Despite earlier projections for a launch this year, the company has reportedly postponed the release to make sure Apple's AI-driven platform and Matter compatibility are both solid.
Threads users can now follow profiles from other platforms that use ActivityPub. The Fediverse, Mastodon, Flipboard, all of those places. You can now follow them from Threads. Yep, that's right. Threads is another step towards being a full part of the Fediverse because you can only follow an account that has liked, followed, or replied to something on your Threads account. But we're getting there. It's
progress.
Little by little. Yeah.
Spotify Wrapped 2024 introduced some new features, including an AI-powered podcast created with Google's Notebook LM tool, offering an audio summary of your, as a user, year in music and highlighting top songs, artists, and genres in select countries. Spotify also included Your Music Evolution, tracking how you might have changed in your musical tastes over the year, and expanded its audiobooks catalog as well. Other updates include a new playlist generator for premium subscribers and special messages from artists and podcasters for what they deem their top fans.
Oh, that's one of my favorite songs. Such a good song. Is what they say a lot in that Notebook LM. Let's take a deep dive into this next story. On Wednesday, the journal Nature published an article about Google's DeepMind new weather forecasting model that allegedly outperforms the European Center for Medium Range Weather Forecast System in 97.2% of tested metrics. This model is called GenCast and uses machine learning to produce a range of potential outcomes instead of a single projection. One of the big deals about it is that it's accurate up to 15 days in advance. And usually weather models, as we were talking about earlier this week, are only good at like up to 3 days. It also covers extreme events like tropical cyclones and may better anticipate impacts from climate change. While the technology shows promise, experts, of course, say it's not meant to replace human forecasters. It's just another model to throw
the
at this.
meteorologist on your local news is like,
they'll still stand up there and tell you. They're using models already anyway. It's not a big deal. Everybody relax.
Yeah. I mean, listen, you're a weather doctor. We get it. You're still the best at what you do. It's nice to have new tools. Google also introduced Veo, a generative AI video tool that lets users create 1080p videos using natural language prompts, lasting more than a minute. Of the video that gets rendered, with inputs for things like camera angles and lighting accepted as well. Google plans to open a private preview for creators through its Vertex AI platform. The company is also rolling out Imagen 3, an upgraded text-to-image model with improved photorealism and text rendering. OpenAI's 12 Days of OpenAI event is kicking off Thursday, December 5th. Sam Altman brought it to us in a statement.
Santa Altman.
Oh.
Yes, exactly. It's a bit, it's definitely a sort of a Christmas theme. It's set to bring 12 new announcements or releases or whatever over the next 12 days, starting tomorrow, Thursday, including the anticipated Sora model for text to video creation, which is kind of interesting considering that Google just announced VIO. But also new reasoning model, which is deemed O1. Sam Altman confirmed this at the New York Times DealBook conference on Wednesday. He didn't say exactly what was coming, though, so I think it's supposed to be like an advent calendar. Like, what are you going to get? The event is expected to highlight a range of new features, along with some perhaps more kitschy updates, like a possible Santa-inspired voice for ChatGPT. Now, Sora, not publicly available yet, and has received some backlash from artists. Scott, what are you looking forward to?
Well, I actually am looking forward to the things that aren't necessarily the same old things that we're all yelling about. Like, you talk about artists not being happy about stuff. We never seem to be, right? So I kind of want to see, I want more on the front of how are you training data that is not just straight up lifting or scraping from people who've done hard work and now have no credit or recourse or any of that. But also I'm just looking forward to advancements outside of image and text generation. We've kind of had our fill of that. It's a sort of an established thing. You can improve those things, sure. So that stuff will get better, and they'll talk about why it's better. That's great. But I would rather start hearing about big advances in areas that maybe we're just not all thinking about. So I know that puts a lot on them because I don't have specifics, but I would love to hear about stuff that isn't. Our image generator can do this now, and all 5 fingers will be represented on each hand. I don't care. I don't want any more of that if I can help it. What I would like to hear about is stuff that's more integrated into everyday technology we use, or partnerships with other companies where it makes sense that their backends are now enhanced with OpenAI services and therefore can produce better results for us, or whatever those things may be. So I guess my biggest hope is it's just not the same old. And they're doing this. It's a long enough event that they should have plenty of new things to talk about.
Well, they better.
Have
12 days long.
Yeah,
have
it's
either
long.
of you ever done an advent calendar?
I have.
Oh, my
I
God.
drew
Have you
one.
ever
Yes.
bought an advent calendar from like a store that it's like, ooh, I'm going to get 25 amazing things?
Sure.
Have you ever been disappointed by those things? After
mean,
you
find out
finish opening all
they're
25?
all just a single
my
M&M.
advent calendars were
Yeah.
always just pieces of like gross chocolate. But
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
a kid, so I'm like, it's December 2nd. I'm eating that chocolate. My
That's
parents
kind
were
of
sort
what I'm
like,
expecting here. You only make a big deal out of this if you are thinking, these announcements aren't going to pack a lot of punch on their own. How can we in this brainstorming
Yeah.
public relations meeting figure out how
can
to
we
make them
stretch it
pack more of a
out?
punch? Model 01, and granted, I know we're going on, we're going on pre-release information, some of which is anonymous sources and leaks, et cetera. But Model 01 exists. You can get it. It's in preview. Like that would just be and now it's available for everyone sort of situation. It would not be new. Sora also available to limited people. It would just be a public release for everyone. And that would beat Google, which you just mentioned, which is only available to select companies on Vertex. But again, that's not a bad thing, but it's not a huge new thing. That's probably the biggest thing on here. Santa voice coming to ChatGPT is nice, but I want to see agents. I want to see something that's like, and now you can create more agents. Agents are easier to implement. Agents, if you don't know, are the things that can do things for you using these tools. So instead of just saying, please tell me about this or please rewrite this, you say, go do this. Take that list of things that Scott emailed me that I need for my stickers and order them. And it can just go and do it all and figure out how to do it without you having to intervene. That's the big announcement. I don't feel here's my problem. Like, we're going to get that because why would you bury it in 12 other announcements, one of which might be Santa's voice? You're not going to have anything big here, or else you wouldn't have 12 announcements.
My friend Greg Street, who I do a show with every month about his new video game company, they get peppered with questions all the time as they're trying to be really transparent about how their process works, about AI, what technologies are they using, and that sort of thing. And he said something recently on Blue Sky that really stuck with me. He says, "I am so happy for AI to dig ditches for us, but I want to make the art. Getting to make the art was supposed to be the reward of all of this." I think there is a general feeling of, like Tom just said, which reminded me of this, let's fill in the mundane, but not the stuff we love doing. Fill in the other stuff. Like, we love selling those stickers and we love people getting them. You know what's not fun? The middle bit. That's not fun.
Yeah.
Getting into the post office, having them ship, tracking numbers.
The tedious part, the
Exactly.
shipping part. Exactly.
Yeah.
And frankly, the reason those advent calendars are disappointing is because they're trying to give you 25 things, right? And so they can't possibly give you 25 great things at a price that you would buy an advent calendar for. Same thing applies here. You're not going to do 12 announcements in a row if you have a big announcement. You're just going to do the one big announcement.
Yep. I agree.
I mean, you could do maybe a couple leading up to the big announcement, but yeah, there's just the one.
Yeah. Well, 6 months ago, it was discovered that attackers thought to originate in China penetrated the networks of up to 80 telco and internet providers, including AT&T, Verizon, and Lumen Technologies, which is what CenturyLink is now. The attackers accessed metadata showing what numbers phones called. They, in some specific targeted cases, were able to access live phone calls and were able to access the CALEA system, spelled C-A-L-E-A. The CALEA stands for Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies. It lets law enforcement and intelligence agencies with court orders track communications. So the telcos create a CALEA database, and then with a court order, they can probe that CALEA database for stuff. CALEA also includes classified court orders from the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, the FISA people that works with national intelligence agencies. That stuff they said we're only ever going to access it with cause and no one else can get into it. Well, turns out people that are thought to originate in China have access to it because they haven't evicted them from the network yet. In a press conference on Tuesday, Jeff Green, Executive Assistant Director for Cybersecurity at CISA, said, "Encryption is your friend," and went farther than that, saying, "We really encourage you to use secure communications if you're concerned at all, because we don't have a timeline when we're going to be able to get these malicious actors out of these networks." An unnamed senior FBI official said, "People looking to further protect their mobile device communications would benefit from considering using a cell phone that automatically receives timely operating system updates," smart, responsibly managed encryption, well phrased, and phishing-resistant multi-factor authentication. That's all good advice, but yes, you heard it right. The FBI that has been campaigning against full end-to-end encryption over the past 10 years plus and constantly asking for a backdoor, is now recommending that you use encryption to keep your stuff from showing up in the database that they wanted to populate with the things they would get out of a backdoor.
So, okay. So, we're all chuckling about this, like, oh, look at the FBI. But, why do you think such a 180?
Because it was easy to make the argument, we'll protect it when no one else was inside the secured system. It's a lot harder to make the argument when, oh crap, someone we don't want is inside the secured system. They were just forced to confront reality. And the reality is, if you have a backdoor, eventually someone you don't want to have access to that backdoor will figure out how to use it. And this is an example of exactly that principle at work. Someone you didn't think would be able to get access to CALEA eventually got access to Kalea.
Yeah, I think the important note here too is that they know this. I mean, they're not saying this dumbly. They're not going use encryption, even though we've been telling you not to.
No, in fact, they're still saying responsibly managed encryption to leave them some wiggle room to ask for a backdoor in the future.
Of course. So I mean, it's kind of a cluster, no matter how you look at it. But it's almost as if some people foresaw this and then recommended against it, which I remember very clearly. People saying that this is going to be a problem. There will always be a way in if you create a backdoor. So I'm not even saying anyone's going to learn their lesson, but at the very least, we've learned that.
Yeah,
I don't know things. It's not even hypocrisy. Like that's not even what you call this. This is just results of bad ideas that you were warned would happen.
Some people would call it hypocrisy, but
I think that just look at it at a certain perspective. You could call it hypocrisy.
Sure.
There's an argument for that. Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, listen, it's like the FBI is, an agency that wants access to information in order to, on the surface, protect all of us, right?
Yeah.
That's the deal. So the idea that the FBI would be able to gain access to anything that I do on a mobile device that I thought was super private and secret and only known to me is not that surprising. What I think we're in a situation now is that the FBI is like, shoot, we are not controlling this information anymore. Somebody else is, and for that reason, let's all encrypt stuff. But maybe we'll talk to Signal about how to still get some information here and there. I'm not saying that that's what's happening, but
No, but it feels like that, right? It feels like there was a room where CISA was like, we need to tell people to use end-to-end encryption, and FBI's like, that's kind of uncomfortable for us. But okay, what if I'm not named in the press conference and I say responsibly managed? I could probably say responsibly managed encryption, right? Mm-hmm. But again, it's not exactly the same thing. But one of the arguments against Kalea was if you collect all this data on people and it's great to say we'll only use it when it's absolutely necessary, but it's there. What if someone gets access to it? And the argument was it's well secured. People won't be able to get access to it without a lot of effort. But nation states are willing to put in a lot of effort, especially in the current world climate. And that seems to be what might be happening here, in which case, well, you probably shouldn't have put all that information in one database or found a different way to do it. It's unfortunate. The takeaway for us, though, is that we're probably not targets. Most of the people targeted in this intrusion are DC area, and they're involved in government politics and that sort of thing. But if you want to make sure to protect yourself, don't send anything you wouldn't want to be read over an SMS or even most RCS connections, even though they can be encrypted. A lot of them are not. Use WhatsApp, use Signal, you freaking use Telegram. It's more secure than just open SMS at this point.
Yep. And good luck out there. Godspeed.
Yes, all of you are personal John Glens. Join in the conversation in our Discord, which you can join by linking to a Patreon account at patreon.com/DTNS.
When speaking to the BBC about the role of AI in video game development, the head of Sony Interactive Entertainment, Hermen Hulst, said, quote, I suspect there will be a dual demand in gaming, one for AI-driven innovative experiences and another for handcrafted, thoughtful content, but also added, striking the right balance between leveraging AI and preserving the human touch will be crucial. It's a little unclear what Hulst was going for here, Scott, but what do you make of this?
Well, there are a few people who are saying they're talking out of both sides of their mouth and they're not really saying anything, but I actually disagree. I think this is the most thoughtful points we've heard from an executive in the gaming industry since AI really started to take a foothold in terms of even just in discussion, not even so much a foothold in the technology yet. I think we're still a ways off from that. But most of them are either saying, we're not doing anything with AI, forget it, even though their games include forms of AI. Nobody wants to define the word. There's a lot of that going on. And on the other extreme, you have people going, we're putting NFTs and everything, and then we're going to do this with crypto, and then AI is going to run the whole thing. So they're kind of like all in. and that's been putting some, significant portions of the gamer population off. This is the most reasonable take I've heard, which is, yeah, it's kind of inevitable. AI is coming to games. It's going to do a bunch of things. In my mind, those things need to be these following 4 things, really 3 things. I want to see more dynamic worlds, and that means a lot of AI involved in what the world is, how dynamic it is, maybe how fresh it is when you walk from one place to another, really have things change up in ways that you can't do in a manual way. We already do some of that with some simple algorithmic stuff, but in this case, there's more to do there. There's dynamic NPC behaviors. How do the non-character stuff around you in your world, let's say you're playing an RPG, how will they behave? Can we make that more dynamic and interesting? And then more dynamic stories that aren't going to be the same for every single person who plays it. There are games now where you can have a number of endings or different branching paths, but they're still finite. There is some dreaming going on about how AI could make some of that stuff infinite, possibly, or so many combinations you'd never see them all. That's really interesting to players. We want to see more of those 3 areas to create more emergent gameplay in our games. Exactly. And it's more than just, hey, this game, I don't know, has a really smart guy that talks to you and can tell what you have in your inventory or something. I'm talking about things that I don't think any of us are even thinking of yet. There are going to be gameplay opportunities here for sure. And I think he's talking about those. And if he isn't, he should be. And on the other hand, the human part of it, to me, it doesn't separate. There aren't these 2 separate things, which is why what he said is a little confusing. But I don't think it's going to be, here's a game where only AI is involved and it's just making everything. And then here's a game a guy made and it's all got the personal human touch we love. Enjoy these 2 very disparate things. I don't think that's what he's saying. I think what he's saying and what he really means, and what I think the future actually is a combination of those things. Human direction, human inspiration, creativity, tools to get the hard, weird work done to make these dynamic, interesting worlds more so. That's where we're headed. Whether anyone wants to say that or not, it has been difficult for some reason, and he's come the close to saying it. So I like where his head's at.
Yeah, he's not the first person I've heard say something like this, which is we are going to use these tools when they make things better. But still be in charge of making the things. Mm-hmm. I don't think it should be that controversial. It's just people don't believe him. People, right. People have set themselves up in the habit these days of like, if someone in a position of authority speaks, I will not believe them. Mm-hmm. I will not give them the benefit of the doubt. I will make the most negative interpretation of what they're saying as possible. And the most positive interpretation, I know, is what Sony would like everyone to have, but the most positive interpretation would be that Sony is saying, we don't want to get kneecapped because someone is going to figure out how to make a really creative, awesome game by learning the line between what the tools are good at that speed up the production and make the production better, and giving the creators of the game more time to work on the elements that make the game awesome. And any company that does that is going to leap ahead of everyone else unless the other companies are doing it too. And Sony's basically saying, we don't want to be leaped ahead of. We want to be one of the companies that figures out that balance. It's far from saying that they're guaranteed to figure out the balance, and maybe it's reasonable to believe they aren't the best position to figure out the balance. But saying they're going to try, I don't think is a bad thing.
Yeah, it's a massive competitive advantage to do what you're saying, or to get there. Whoever gets there, whether it's someone who does it first or if the entire industry sort of arrives there in a semi-simultaneous way, there'll still be competitive advantages in certain ways or another. But all of that aside, like, knowing that that's where we're headed, I think is an important thing to do. And also understanding that if you don't get the balance, like you mentioned, that balance right between what we are doing as humans and what we are allowing our computers to do in this business, you have to get that right, or else nobody has an advantage. You've sunk a ton of R&D money and whatever other costs into the thing, and what you produce, nobody wants to buy. You still need players to go, ooh, I need to buy that, and they're not going to do it on promises alone. So I think that's why I like the vaguisms here, because he's not really saying PlayStation will be the place that does it. They'd love to be, and they want you to have that impression. But they're not really saying that. What they're really saying is, yeah, of course. And they get these questions all the time. There's so much pressure on the industry to talk about this and to address it and constantly be fielding questions about AI. And usually they're very negative, questions trying to trip people up and stuff.
Yeah, like, is everyone going to get fired? that kind of thing.
There's always that kind of stuff. You're going to lose. We're looking at a future where half your developer base is gone because the computer. It's like they want these questions answered. There's nothing wrong with asking them, but I just feel like this is the best one I've heard. And I have issues with Sony over the last couple of years. I am not a giant Sony fanboy to start with. So I'm not coming at this like, oh, way to go, Sony, you're my man. It's just that this kind of discussion is better had with just like reasonable expectations. And his responses sounded reasonable.
His responses sounded like they know that probably some individual or group is going to figure out how to use these tools because they need to. They won't be able to do a game otherwise. They're going to figure out how to use these tools to make an incredible game. Yeah. And the gaming world is going to rally around them because they're an individual who figured out the balance and is able to say, I just use the tools to do this, but the rest of it is me. And then Sony wants to buy that. That's pretty much Sony's future, I think.
Yeah, I think that's actually true. So, we're with all things, we have to wait and see, but there is a bit of a chomping at the bit right now. This industry moves fast and furious, and they fire and they hire and they fire again. And it's a kind of chaos. And there's all those other issues around the industry right now that have nothing to do with AI. AI is just this looming threat and benefit at the same time, and watching that settle is going to be fascinating. So
yeah,
a tiny bit of this sounds like the whole fast fashion argument to me. Fast fashion meaning I don't know, you go into Forever 21 or Zara or whatever, and you get something that looks expensive but isn't. And for a lot of people, they're like, I want the less expensive thing, but it looks good. And then, if you want to, if you've got the cash or you care enough, you go with something that feels a little bit more authentic. This feels like the same argument to me.
Yeah, I think there is a very, and again, it's a fine line. Authenticity comes from the human touch, and you can have things that are digitally authentic, but it's not the same. And what people want is the right marriage of those things, because that's what games have always been. Let's not kid ourselves. Games have had elements of AI in them forever. The terminology is a little goofy right now. Like everything being called AI is kind of a mistake. There's so much nuance and so much granularity there. So it's also going to be up to us too to understand what this
every
is.
Every game is an algorithm.
Yeah,
every one of them. Every video game,
one.
anyway. Board games are kind of algorithms.
Kind of, yeah. They're analog algorithms.
Mind, sure.
Yeah. They're analogarithms.
Is that a top level domain?
I hope so. .analogarithm.
Scott Johnson .analogarithm.
Johnson.analogarithm.
Check it out now.
Yeah, he does.
Meanwhile, we're fairly certain that most of the emails we get are from humans. But I don't know. Sarah's going to look at one and see.
So this one comes from Brian. Brian, you're a human. We know this. Who says, Apple has decided to kill off Keychain and replace it with passwords. But I use Keychain to store all kinds of stuff, like a copy of my passport, security questions, as well as login information. I store nothing in the cloud. I want it with me on my laptop only. Yes, I have several backups. But is there a good replacement software to look at to store these things locally?
And then Venura wrote on our Patreon, as if in answer, I've been using Bitwarden for some time now, and the passkey management is excellent. It allows me to use passkeys across multiple devices. Bitwarden allows you to manage things yourself. Now, there is a cloud version of it, but you don't have to use the cloud version of it. I don't know if that's exactly what Brian's after, though. I think he might be after something a little simpler, because with Bitwarden, you have to do some work yourself. I'm not saying Brian couldn't do it. I'm just saying, he may be like, yeah, it's great. Anything that's a little faster to get set up. So I throw it out to the audience. If anybody out there knows of a good on mobile device storage of secure information like passport and security questions and stuff, let us know what you use. Feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com. Indeed. Anand Jr. also wrote us, my sister and I have been trying rather fruitlessly to get mom to use a password manager. My sister set her up on LastPass, got everything set up and saved, and we find out she couldn't get into her LastPass and has been saving passwords in a text document on her laptop. This past Halloween, I sat down with her and set up 1Password. Got everything set up, all her sites stored, work and personal set in different vaults as well. As we were leaving Thanksgiving, as I'm getting ready to walk out, she's retrieving a password from a text document again. Guess we'll try again on Christmas.
Oh, Anon Jr., I know the feeling. My own mother, I think she uses LastPass still. But I mean, there are times where I'm like, oh, we got to get into this or that. And she's like, oh, here it is, written down on this sticky note. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Willie Scott, in response to Brian's email, says, I've heard KeyPass is pretty good, but I don't have any personal experience. But that's a good reminder. KeyPass is another one that people use to have control over the secure information.
Sure.
Well, Scott Johnson, we never control you because you control yourself.
Can't be. No one puts Scott
Can't
in the
be
corner.
controlled. No way. But you can tell us what you're up to lately.
Well, sure. This AI discussion is a good example of the kind of thing we cover on a show every Thursday called Core on my network. It is a podcast with me and two of my good friends, Bo and John. And we cover all the happenings in the industry as well as stuff we're playing. But big issues like what is AI? How does it work? Why is it going to affect us in this way or the other? Often comes up, and I bet it will this week. So do check it out if you have a minute. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts or go straight to frogpants.com/core.
Patrons, stick around for the extended show. Good Day Internet. Ubisoft shutting down a free-to-play game and also laying some people off. Poor kids can't catch a break over there at Ubisoft. Scott's going to talk about it.
You can catch our show live Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern. That is 2100 UTC, and you can find out more at dailytechnewsshow.com/live. We're back doing it all again tomorrow with Justin Robert Young joining us. We'll talk to you then.
The DTNS family of podcasts, helping each other understand.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.